to start all the way back at the very beginning, the first story that I was ever told about my life, the first everything. And let me just give you a little clue here. This is my book. This is like my trauma book. So when I have memories come back or flashbacks come back, I got this marked out for the years, 1992, 1983, all the way up to current. And then I go back and I write them down in the year or the date around the time that it happened to the best of my ability. But the first thing I'm going to start with is, this is my first time in life. Literally, these are my first few days home from life. So my mom was 19 when she had me. She didn't know who my father was. There were 4 or 5 guys that could have been my father. She told me that she was a virgin until that night, that week. I don't even know. I don't know. I don't care. I think that she has a lot of trauma to deal with, and I don't know what happened. That's not really my business, okay? I know that she had told a few guys that they were the father, so they were involved, like during her pregnancy or whatever, but she didn't know who the father was. She tells me, I was born July 29th, so she tells me that July 4th, which is like 3 weeks before that she was skiing, if you know what I mean, drinking, and they had this activity barrel at this pond that they still have today. It's a barrel that you can stand on and like you try to run on it on the water. So it's difficult, and you definitely shouldn't be doing it 9 months pregnant, skiing and drinking. You probably shouldn't be doing that. And the rest of my family did enlighten me that she did, you know, use substances during the pregnancy, which is not surprising. Anyhow, when she had me, she brought me home, and she said she was basically like a teenager, just arguing with her parents all the time, like a very immature teenager. So she would use me as a weapon, as a tool, and she would take me. She said that she told my grandma and grandpa that she was going to go show me off to all her friends. There's nothing they can do about it. I'm her child, and blah, blah, blah. So she said they got in an argument. She grabbed the car seat and took me out, put me in the car. She said she turned out of the driveway, and the door flew open, and I fell out in my car seat and rolled down into the ditch. Okay. Gee, I don't know why I have back problems today. I have no clue. So then she said she thought maybe her parents were right, so she brought me back to the house and gave me to them, and she went out and partied. So there was my first trauma in the first few days of life, and I'm sure there was more than that, actually, but, you know, she gave me to my grandparents so they would actually care for me, and they did, and then she could do what she wanted as a teenager, because that's what she was. But for the rest of my life until I was 28 years old, she used that same situation. She used the same, that I am a pawn, and she can move me wherever to get the things that she wants. She did that to me my entire life. She got everything she wanted from my grandparents, from my aunts and uncles. She just made sure that I was used as a weapon, and she used my safety literally. Well, I'm going to keep Brittany, and I'm going to take her here. And if you don't do this or you don't do that, and then people would do it because they knew I was in harm all the time. Very, very dysfunctional family unit there. And it did not start with my mom. It started ahead of time. But, you know, the grandparents that raised me was not the same parents that raised her. I do know that, and I've told her that. So you have some context. This is how it goes for the rest of my life until I'm 15 and a half and get out of her care. So I would be with her Sunday night through Thursday night. So during the school week, I would be with her. And then on Friday, my grandparents would pick me up from school. And then Sunday at like 7 or 8 at night, I would have to go back with her. I would wake up Sunday morning and my stomach would be in a knot because I hated having to go back to her. I hated it. And I spent the entire weekend, every weekend, I spent recovering from the war that I had just been in for the whole 5 days over there. So that's how it worked. That's how my family dynamic worked. And then my grandparents, you know, would feed me and clothe me and bathe me and all the things that didn't happen through the week. And this went on until I was, you know, 15 and a half, until I left her care. So this is a good story about the beginning context of how the rest of my life goes. And then on those weekends when my grandparents and my aunts and uncles had me, those were my childhood. That's what I feel like my childhood is, because there was no abuse. There was no hitting. There was no emotional, physical, mental abuse. There was none of that. It was just pure being able to be a kid. And I love those parts of my life. I remember them and I love them dearly. And then, you know, I would have flashes of during that weekend, I got to go back to this. I got to go back to this. That's where my anxiety came from. I know number one was I was so anxious about going back on a Sunday. I hated it so much. But yeah, this is for context so you guys can see kind of how the rest of this is going to go.